So a couple of things we want to do. If you draw a tic-tac-toe grid across your video monitor and imagine where those lines would be on your display, we generally want to keep kind of the center of their face on that top line. Okay. So if you look right now at how I've got my shot framed up, that gives her the appropriate amount of head space, and head space is what I'm going to call the area above her head to the top of the frame. Okay. So if I were to do this, that's too much head space. So director, Byron, this is one of the terms you might use. Hey, close up or tighten up the head space for me. Okay. Or if we're like this, her head is too close to the top of the frame, give me a little more head space. Okay. So that's what we'll call that so that everybody knows kind of what that is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing we're going to do when we're talking framing is her yawning up there. The other thing we're going to do is what we're going to call look space. Okay. And look space we're going to define as whatever side her nose is on. Okay. So generally, we want to give a little more look space on the shot. So if it's Craig at the pulpit, we'll keep him centered up. But for more artistic kind of stuff like the song services, we might give Alex a little more look space, which means just giving her a little more room on the nose side. Okay? And from camera one, this is even more important because your people aren't usually looking right at camera one. Okay, so that's a big difference. If they're kind of a little bit of a profile shot, we definitely want to give them some look space. Okay. All right. The other thing I want to watch when we're framing up a shot is we want to be careful that we generally don't cut off their elbows. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch over to Connor because he's more usually our target. So if my director says, all right, camera 2, give me a tight shot of Connor. This is what we're going to call a tight shot of Connor. So basically, think like pant pockets and up. Okay? And right now, I've got kind of his nose, or I've got his chin on that top third line. Okay? So this feels like a pretty good framing on this shot. If I go a little higher, put his eyes on that top third, he's got too much head space. So I'm going to bring it down a little. Got kind of his chin on that top third. Okay. So this is, for directors and camera operators, this is what we're going to call a tight shot. Okay. Now, if the director ever says, give me a full tight, that means I've got no zoom left. I'm zoomed as far in as I can. Okay. So if director says, give me a full tight, don't go slow, kind of make it look all pretty and stuff. If you're off air and he says, 2, give me real quick, give me a full tight of Connor, that's as fast as you can. Rack into here, check your focus real quick, and make sure it's nice and sharp, and then you're ready to go. Okay? So this is full tight. Pant pockets and up is tight. Okay? And if we say, give me a full body shot or a head to toe shot, that's what we'll call those. Okay. Now, what I want to try to do when I'm changing my framing is I'm going to try to keep his head at about the same place in my shot. Okay. So in this shot, I've got shoes all the way up, and I've got a decent amount of head space here. His head's up above the top third line. Okay, so this is a full body or a head to toe. All right. Now, if the director says, give me a stage shot will include all the people on the stage, regardless of how many people there are. Okay. So Byron, this is probably a little different than what you've been playing with. So for this set, we've only got a few people on stage. This is what we would call a stage shot.
Okay.
Okay. If you say, give me a full wide shot, we're gonna say that means everything wide, include the screens. So this is a full wide. Okay, stage. Now the stage shot again, it changes. If we've got the choir risers up there and the big band over on the left, a stage shot would include all those people and look more like this. Okay. All right. So a stage shot. This is an important shot for the director to be able to use when he's switching back and forth among cameras. We never want to switch from the same perspective. Like, we don't want a tight shot of Lexi dissolving to a tight shot of Alex. We always want to try to change our perspective when we're going from one shot to the next. So the director will pretty often, he'll say, give me a stage shot. And that's something that he can get to. If he's at a tight shot of Lexi and he wants to go down to a tight shot of Connor, he's probably going to go somewhere else in between those two. So a stage shot would be a common thing to do. Okay. So we've got, just to recap, full tight. I can't go in any further. Tight is going to include kind of pants pocket and up. Head to toe. Going to include the shoes. The right amount of headspace up there. Stage shot is going to include all the people on the stage with a little bit of a margin on the sides. And then full wide is everything you got. Okay.
Now on the full stage and wide, do you want more crowd or just centered up people?
Usually the director will give you that kind of instruction. Generally, we want to see less ceiling and more crowd. So
that's what I thought, yeah.
More like this. Now we also have to consider that we've got song lyrics across the bottom, right? So if we're like this, then, you know, if we're up very high, we're going to have the song lyrics covering up the action on the stage. Not necessarily a bad thing as long as we're doing it on purpose. So here's an example of a shot move that we may do. We're going to call this a tilt down, okay? So there are times when your director may say, give me a full stage and do a tilt down, or give me a full wide and do a tilt down. I would not do a tilt down shot on anything tighter than a stage, okay? They look better wide like this. So what that's going to look like, I'm going to start up high like this. So Byron, do me a favor, cue up camera 3. He's tight on
Okay.
Connor. Okay, good. So you're on camera 3. So go ahead and take camera 3. And then do kind of a medium speed dissolve to me when I get Connor at about the bottom third mark. Okay, that makes sense?
I think
So I'm going to start my tilt down. So fade to my shot. And then fade back to 3, somewhere in here. Okay, so that's kind of a cool looking shot because it gives some motion to it. It's a kind of an establishing shot. It's a big wide shot. Let's try it one more time, Byron.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead, 2. Perfect, right there. He just stopped singing. So this is a great transition shot. And it's up to the camera guy to kind of pace this and go back to 3, assuming he was going to sing there. Okay.
Right.
So that's what we're going to call a tilt down. And again, those are going to happen only on wide shots. So give me a tilt down. That's what that would look like. Director would, okay, put me back up if you would, Byron. Director will wind up taking your shot somewhere in here and keep your shot through somewhere in here. There's no hard and fast rules there, but as we all kind of work on that and practice that, we'll figure out what looks best. Okay. Here's a shot that's kind of fun. And again, we're trying to time all this stuff to the music. So if the director says, 2, give me a stage shot, just do a flyover of Connor. Okay, so here's what that would look like. A flyover, I'm going to put Connor's head at about that top third mark, thereabouts. And I'm going to start my push in on Connor, and I'm kind of tilting up as I go. I want to keep his head in the same place. So I'm going in, I'm going in. I've got to know when I'm about to run out of zoom. I'm going to rack my focus out and tilt up over him as the director fades to another shot. Okay, so let's try that. So Byron, we'll go camera 3. So I'm in focus. All right, so I'm going to zoom in. And this is just kind of a coordination thing between the camera guy and director as to when to start the fade. So usually the director would say, okay, rack out now, going 3. So obviously we should have had a kind of a medium or wider shot there, but that's what that the flyover would look like. So if the director says, give me a flyover shot, make sure you're in focus before you start, because you lose the effect if you don't. So again, here's what that would look like. John, camera 3, can you give me a stage shot? All right, so here comes my move. And again, we want to try to time this to something in the music, which obviously there's not any right now. And fade out. There you go. Cool.
Probably started like a little bit too early.
That's all right, though. That one just takes some practice. And that's why we're trying to get specific directors working with specific camera people as much as possible. Okay. So that's a flyover. So if the director says, camera 1, give me a flyover of the left female vocalist at the chorus. So when you start the chorus, you start your push in, and then hopefully at a break between chorus and the next thing, bridge or whatever, that's when you time it so that you start your rack focus. Okay? Who is this? This is Lexi. So again, here's what this would look like. And you kind of have to pace your shot, your zoom, with the song. All right.
Okay. Too early, sorry.
All right. All right, let me get her back in focus. All right, so here's what it looks like. And you can get kind of nice and artsy with it. You can fade, do your flyover to an angle. All right, go now. So you're pushing them out of the frame as the director transitions to whatever the next shot is. Okay. If you do a flyover while you're way in like this, go ahead and check your focus. Okay. So that's kind of the trick for focusing your camera. If you're not on air, crash zoom in all the way in as fast as you can. Check your focus. Get your focus, and then pull back out and frame up your shot. Okay. All right, so another framing thing we didn't talk about is if the director says, give me a 2-shot, this is more, Byron, this is probably more relevant to your services where we've got 5 people across the front. If I say give me a 2-shot, that means give me 2 people, 2 vocalists in that shot. If I say give me a 3-shot, give me 3 people in that shot. Okay? So I'll do that. Again, I don't like transitioning from a shot of a single person to a shot of a single person, because if my camera guy has framed them right in the center of the shot, then all of a sudden to the viewer, that person just morphed into a different person. So instead we hide that by a different framing. Okay, so I may go from a tight shot of somebody to a 2-shot with 2 people in it, and then back to a tight shot, things like that. Okay. All right, so here's another thing we might do specifically with Connor and his guitar. When Brad gets here, he's a guitar player, so we'll probably do some of this with him too. We may, of course he turns around, we may go tight on Connor's guitar. So I would say, give me a full tight on Connor's guitar. So I don't care about getting his face in the shot at all, okay? So what we might do though is your director might say, give me a full tight on the guitar, and then when he starts singing, reveal him. Okay, so here's what that would look like. In this case, we just kind of tilt up and reveal him as he starts singing. We could do a tilt up. We could do a reveal, could be a pull out. Okay, so there's some method of getting the singer's face back into the shot. That's what we're going to call a reveal. Okay. Now, here's another shot that's really cool and also very hard to do. So this one takes some practice. So when I turn my focus knob, I'm zoomed all the way in. I'm full tight right now on Lexi. If I push my focus knob, the top of it, away from me, that focuses the camera further away from me. If I turn the focus knob, if I pull it back towards me, that moves the focus towards me. Okay? So if we've got a shot and Chris down here doing announcements is not in focus, but Connor's mic stand behind him is, that tells me which way to move my focus knob. I need to move it back towards me a little, okay? Now, one thing you'll notice, I'm up here on Lexi. If I get her in focus, now if I push my focus knob as far away from me as I can, watch up here on the screens, that's as out of focus as I can get her. If I push it away from me. If I get her back in focus, when I pull my focus knob toward me, I can get her so blurry you can't even tell what it is, okay? So generally, when we're going to knock stuff out of focus on purpose, we're going to pull the focus knob back towards us. Okay, that gives us a better effect. So here's what this will look like. We're going to call that racking in and out of focus, by the way. That's what we'll call that. Rack your focus in, rack your focus out. Okay? So here's what that might look like. Director may say, camera 2, rack out of focus, and then when I tell you, rack back in. Okay, so my shot's blurry right now. So try this. Go camera 3 for me, Byron. And then do a dissolve to camera 2. And I'm going to rack this back into focus as you do. So I'm watching you. Go ahead. So I rack her shot into focus as the director's fading to my shot. Really cool look. Really hard to get it, because you don't want to overshoot when you're trying to correct your focus, right? So I'm out of focus, and if the director says, all right, rack in, I'm going to turn my knob, and I'm going to try to rack her right into focus and land on her in focus, okay? So that's one to get some practice in on. Once we get the focus really figured out, we can start doing some really cool stuff like this. So I'm going to rack into focus. Boom. Okay, so again, definitely take some practice, but that one's one that can really kind of spice it up a little.